This isn't politics as usual. When Congressman Adam Smith asked the Pentagon if they have invasion plans for Greenland and Panama, the Defense Secretary's answer should terrify every American. What you're about to see isn't a routine budget hearing. It's the moment we discovered the Pentagon is planning military invasions of allied territories under the guise of defense planning.
Recognize the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on the budget point, I made this point before the committee before. The House just passed a budget that adds nearly $3 trillion to an already out-of-control debt. So if we do really want to spend money on defense or anywhere else, we got to be willing to pay for it. And I certainly go back through generations of bipartisan problems with this. You can't have a debt that size and keep coming back talking about how much money you're going to spend, whether it's defense or whatever your priorities are. And Mr. Secretary, you said the 99% down on border crossings and the border is secure. At the same time, we're going to take $1 billion out of the MILCON budget, out of building barracks, to send it for the border, and there's another 4,000 troops that we're planning on sending down to the border. Given that the border is secure, might you rethink that spending?
Well, sir, we are securing it. It is secure, but it's a manpower-intensive effort at the beginning.
Two different words there. It's either secure or secure. And it sounded to me like you said it was secure.
It is secure.
Okay.
What we're continuing to do is expand that and fortify it through infrastructure, which is a big part of the budget on the Department of Homeland Security side as well. So it's that $1 billion you're talking about was from the CR in FY25. We fully fund that back and more in FY26 with a recognition that we were dealing with the world as it existed when we came in. And the previous administration said they needed new legislation to secure the border. It turns out you just needed a new president.
I would point out
president with the Defense Department and DHS that was willing to go to the border and actually secure it, which is what we
not submitted a budget yet. So whether or not you're putting that money back in remains to be seen. You have definitely taken it out. And I think the obsession there, and I don't disagree, the border needed to be secure. But from a pure budget standpoint, let's just not keep the political focus on that. Let's make sure that we're funding some of the other priorities that we have. So when it comes back to acquisition reform and the chairman's point, it's our committee, certainly Congress is part of the problem. We set up a lot of requirements. Defense contractors are part of the problem. I'm curious, how would you get after reforming the culture at the Pentagon so that you can move faster, number one, and number two, how would you get after the defense contractors that push the requirements process? And specifically, what would you do about the requirements process to try to speed things up?
Well, first of all, I think gold plating is a real problem. Sir, I mean, across the department.
Interesting to use the word gold in this particular context, but yes, I agree with you, actually.
We maybe could use a little bit more silver plating on occasion. A recognition that the 99% solution is oftentimes the enemy of the 85% solution that delivers 2 years sooner. And that's contractors and other companies wanting to do right, but trying to do too much and overpromise, and then they're under-delivering, and the warfighter
not always wanting to do right. In some cases, just wanting to make money,
so,
but yes.
The change is also in acquisitions about people. You need reformers in these positions. I'm here to be a disruptor of those processes. Our deputy secretary has extensive business experience. The types of people we're bringing in as undersecretaries have been disruptors and innovators in the private sector who recognize that bureaucracy can be dysfunctional and needs to be disrupted. So it's taking outside-the-box unique approaches. I mean, virtual design is a big example. How many times are we going to build something physically that takes a year to build when you could use AI and computing power, design it virtually, identify the flaws, and move more quickly, or create open architecture so you can move.
Our committee stands ready to work with you.
I mean, there's 500 different things we can do, and we're doing them.
Yeah, and I'm sincerely concerned about this. Is it the policy of the Department of Defense that we need to be prepared to take Greenland and Panama by force if necessary? Is this a policy that you have within the Department of Defense in accordance with the President's wishes?
I heard what you said about those two countries and saying we need to worry about China. Well, we are worried about China.
That wasn't my concern.
China's malign influence in Panama.
I
and
was
the
concerned
recognition
with
that
us
if China has
saying
control of
that
the
using
ports
military
or
force
malign
to take
influence
another
over the
sovereign
Panama,
country's
we should
territory.
pay attention to that.
Right.
So Panama is very key terrain that we've focused on, and we've been willing to focus
So we
on,
should
as
take it.
is Greenland
We should
key
take
terrain.
it by military force. They're important. I'm not going to
Arctic-
argue with
the
that.
Arctic is
I'm
incredibly
arguing with
important,
the
and
using
adversaries are
our
trying to
military to
gain-
take it by force.
Our job at the DOD is to have plans. And
Do you have a
lot-
plan for that?
Our job at the Defense Department is to have plans for any particular contingency.
Including the contingency of basically
Any
invading
contingency
Denmark.
you need, we've got it. We've got a building full of planners, and we're prepared to give recommendations whenever needed.
So just be clear, you have plans to take Panama and Greenland by force if necessary.
I think the American people would want the Pentagon to have plans for any particular contingency.
Not
and
for that
thankfully,
one, in
we
my
are in the
opinion.
planning business.
Speaking on behalf of the American people, I don't think the American people voted for President Trump because they were hoping we would invade Greenland. I'm going to go out on a limb on that one. I yield back.
What Congressman Adam Smith did in this hearing was more than routine oversight. It was a systematic exposure of how the Pentagon transforms aggressive military planning into acceptable contingency preparation. Smith didn't stumble into this revelation. He methodically pressed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth until the truth emerged. The Pentagon actively maintains invasion plans for sovereign nations under the euphemistic cover of defense planning. The exchange began with budgetary concerns about border security, but Smith strategically pivoted to the core question that should alarm every citizen. Is it the policy of the Department of Defense that we need to be prepared to take Greenland and Panama by force if necessary? This wasn't rhetorical grandstanding. It was surgical questioning designed to extract admissions about military planning that crosses the line from defensive preparation to offensive capability. Hegseth's response revealed the Pentagon's institutional mindset. Rather than denying invasion plans exist, he embraced them, stating, "We're in the planning business," and confirming they have plans for any particular contingency. This admission matters because it transforms hypothetical military scenarios into documented operational possibilities. When a defense secretary openly acknowledges invasion planning, those plans move from theoretical exercises to actionable strategies, awaiting political authorization. The concept of contingency planning requires careful examination because it's often used to justify ethically questionable preparations. Legitimate defense planning involves protecting American territory and interests. Invasion planning involves taking territory that belongs to other nations. Smith exposed this distinction by forcing Hegseth to admit the Pentagon maintains specific plans for military conquest of allied and neutral territories, not just defensive responses to threats. Consider the implications for international relations and democratic governance. When the Pentagon develops invasion plans for Greenland, a territory redongery to NATO ally Denmark, it fundamentally undermines alliance structures built over decades. These plans aren't abstract war games. They require resource allocation, intelligence gathering, and operational preparation that signals aggressive intent to international partners who rely on American stability and predictability. The timing matters too. Smith's questioning came amid broader discussions about defense spending priorities and border security funding. The Pentagon was simultaneously arguing for increased military budgets while openly planning operations against friendly nations. This reveals a departmental culture that prioritizes military expansion over diplomatic solutions and treats invasion planning as routine bureaucratic work rather than extraordinary measures requiring exceptional justification. Smith's final observation cut to the democratic heart of the issue. I don't think the American people voted for President Trump because they were hoping we would invade Greenland. This wasn't partisan criticism. It was a fundamental question about civilian control over military planning. When defense officials develop invasion plans without explicit public mandate, they operate beyond democratic oversight and accountability. The bureaucratic language Hegseth used masked the gravity of what he was describing. Phrases like contingency planning and recommendations whenever needed, sanitize discussions about military conquest. This linguistic strategy allows defense officials to present aggressive planning as routine preparation, making invasion scenarios appear normal rather than extraordinary departures from peaceful foreign relations. The practical consequences extend beyond diplomatic tensions. When the Pentagon maintains invasion plans, it must allocate resources, personnel, and intelligence capabilities to support those plans. This represents opportunity costs, where military assets focus on offensive operations rather than genuine defense needs. Smith's questioning revealed how this planning process diverts attention and resources from legitimate security priorities. What should concern citizens most is the institutional normalization of invasion planning. Hegseth's comfortable acknowledgement suggests the Pentagon views military conquest as an acceptable policy tool rather than a last resort for extraordinary circumstances. This mindset treats sovereignty and international law as obstacles to be overcome rather than foundations for stable international relations. The hearing exposed a dangerous gap between public understanding and military reality. Most Americans assume defense planning means protecting the homeland, not preparing to take other nations' territory. Smith's questioning revealed how this assumption enables Pentagon officials to develop aggressive capabilities while maintaining public support for defense spending that actually funds offensive preparation. This isn't about partisan politics or criticism of any specific administration. It's about institutional accountability and democratic control over military planning. When defense officials openly embrace invasion planning without public debate or congressional authorization, they operate outside the constitutional framework that requires civilian oversight of military operations. The solution requires sustained congressional oversight and public demand for transparency about military planning priorities. Citizens deserve to know when their tax dollars fund invasion preparations rather than legitimate defense needs. Smith's questioning provides a model for the kind of direct, systematic oversight that prevents military institutions from operating beyond democratic accountability.